Okay. This can be very quick. Won't take long. Today is February 24th, 2022. It's just about noon, about 15 minutes ago. The first the first formal announcement came out from Ukrainian government sources that says that Ukraine has lost control of the Chernobyl power plant and that Russia has seized control. They they're not really they're not exactly sure why Russia wanted the power plant. It seemed like a really unexpected and obscure thing to do. It is still considered a dangerous area, um, but but nevertheless, what are they going to do with it? So there are many of the talking heads, people working in think tanks, um, big brained people, and they have come out for many years. This isn't new. They've my bird is helping. Shh, you're being too loud, Barry. Barry behind bars. Hush. Shh, be quiet. Um, they for years they've come out and said that Chernobyl power plant is probably one of the biggest threats in general to the people of the European Union. I don't know if they mean that it's such a source of radioactive material. If there's things there that could be used to attack people, I don't know, but it's people do accept people in the know, not me certainly, but people in the know. They have expressed very often about Chernobyl being in this area of the country and that people usually it's the usual discussion that I've heard it in has been like in terms of like militant separatist terrorist, if you will, that that it could be used to launch a mass casualty event. So I don't know. It's so hard for me to believe. I'm irritated listening to the news and the government officials. I'm really irritated by it because they're just talking in this world of, well, we're gonna cut off access to Swifty, and then they're not gonna be able to do any of their banking. Well, I'm a nobody in the political world. I don't. I know I'm nothing, and I know enough to know that the BRICS nation started years ago, work creating a workaround. So all of the people that our country, I'm talking about our government officials, would point their finger and say, "Oh, you're enemies, you're bad people." Um, they've already developed their own SWIFT system. They don't need the West SWIFT system. They don't need our petrodollar. They don't need anything that we've got. And this is what the goal was with the New World Order, the whole globalist thing. This is what they wanted. They said we all have to be equal, and if there's no sheriff in town, guess who ends up taking over? Anywhere there's a power vacuum, it's a target for despots. So this is it's curious. The whole Chernobyl power plant deal um, is very interesting. What this man is thinking. I think that when I go back and I just finished watching the radio addresses that he gave or television addresses that he gave last night. Um, he looks mad. He looks resolved, and he looks like he's not interested in a single deal. He definitely doesn't give a damn. He poked at Biden. He poked at the United Nations. He laughed about them being impotent. Um, it- no, he's not worried. He's not scared. He's not. But I don't know what that means. What his goal is. But I definitely believe that what he ended up launching over the last 12 hours was dramatically bigger than what anybody was prepared for. I don't care what they say today. I saw a report by CNN. Oh, the Biden White House is not surprised by anything that's happened in the last 24 hours. Oh, really? Because they all look shell shocked to me as they're leaving the White House. No, they're totally surprised. You go back and you listen to all of the talking heads on television, the government officials saying, "Oh, well, they're probably going to come in with an ocean assault from Odessa, and they'll probably launch a little bit out of Belarus, and they're going to cut Ukraine in half. That's their goal. That's what they're going to do. They don't have enough to surround the country. Oops. Oops. It's Russia. They got enough to surround a little tiny country. Don't be silly." So, like usual, the propaganda is nothing. It means nothing. But the reality of what you can see if you're using the, Twitter, where there's people on the ground living the nightmare, or you use one of these aggregators for news and you can kind of see where everything's hitting and whatnot. He's up to something. He's not going to be content to just come in and say, "Okay, here's your new president. Now I'm going back." No. He's in Ukraine to stay. Trust me, there's much more to this than I think that China's behaviors right now are also worrisome. The news that's coming out is they've had many more China military flights into Taiwanese airspace over the last 24 hours than they've ever had before. And then you see stuff like this happening, and you got crazy chubby boy in North Korea. Well, people like him who have been raised with a thirst for great military might, he's watching Ukraine, and if China makes a move, he'll be watching China. And then guess what happens to him? He starts licking his chops and thinking about how he could join the great leaders, Xi and Putin. And he could he could reunite the old Korea. So it's a mess. It is a mess. And I'm not even anybody, I'm just watching the news. You just kind of, I can't figure out how does he stop? Like, once he takes over Ukraine, how does he stop? What does that do for him? There's a lot to be done. Germany buys 37% of their oil and gas from Russia. So while Biden is, beating his chest and saying, "Oh, we're gonna cripple you with sanctions," Germany is standing up going, "No, wait, don't act too hastily. Don't cut off the oil and gas because we're freezing in Germany. And if we can't get access to the oil and gas, the German oil and gas, then what are we going to do?" Biden shut off access to our domestic supply. Now, he took our strategic reserves and gave them to India. Why? Who knows why? But even if we if we open back up the oil wells, if he lifts, the wet coat off of the drill-in restrictions and lets the companies get in there and get busy again and start producing the amount of oil that our country can actually do, then we don't have to go to OPEC and bet. OPEC isn't going to move. In fact, OPEC's not going to do a damn thing for us because they are in whose pocket? Putin. That's why. it this this new approach to international global politics has been devastating for the United States. And it's coming home to roost. Now right now we're all here in the United States in our homes, comfortable, happy, as best as we can after the whole COVID thing. We're already complaining grocery prices are up. Hey, I'm back. I got disconnected. That was so weird. My electricity in my house blinked and then it took a little while for it to come back. So I apologize about that. No, but anyway, no, I know that the invasion of Ukraine was anticipated. Certainly, that is absolutely true. They were trying. Um, they were actually desperately trying to dissuade Putin from what he was doing. There's no doubt about that. But when I say that I think they were caught by surprise, when I say that they all look shell shocked, I'm talking about the scale of the assault. I'm talking about not that they went into Ukraine, but that they were willing to devote so much human life and artillery and loss of large equipment. I I think that is what surprised them. If you go and you look at channels like CNN and MSNBC, because they're comfortable with the Biden administration, right? Their experts were showing very measured types of invasions, really limited kinds of airstrikes or even troop movement, but from protected positions like Crimea or Belarus. Nothing that we saw on Western television in Europe, US, whatever, nothing in the past month or even in the past 48 hours in any way suggested that it was going to be a true invasion. Nothing. The man literally surrounded Ukraine at every available port. He even got within 50 miles of the Polish border, which would have, if anything had gone wrong, an Iran missile landing 5 feet on the other side of the Polish border, that immediately would have invoked Article 5 at the United Nations, which says if you attack one country that is in the UN, then you've attacked all 40 countries in the UN. Basically, World War III. So Russia has lost airplanes, they have lost helicopters, they have lost living troops, they have lost many tanks. Ukraine is not Afghanistan. Ukraine has got European and American military armament. They're inflicting wounds in their effort to protect their country, but they are no match at all for Russia, just because of the sheer number, right? Basically, Putin has unlimited soldiers, unlimited tanks, unlimited aircraft. It's unlimited. Ukraine, it's quite limited. So that's what's got them, I think, rattled. And maybe not so much because of, you lose Ukraine, because that's another thing. What is Ukraine to us? Not much. I mean, it's a lot to Germany and some of the other, Belgium and some of the smaller Luxembourg, some of the smaller European countries, because of the heating and oil, but on a world stage, it's nothing. It just does. It's just a drop in the bucket. Taiwan is more in influential in world matters than Ukraine. And look at what we did to Afghanistan. What about all of those millions of women, female children that were doomed in a heartbeat? Because when the US left, so did everybody else. England and Ireland and Germany. We just walked away and left those people. They're shooting people in the street right now today because their eyes are showing through their screen. So why do we abandon Afghanistan, where we've got two huge military bases and billions of dollars in, helicopters and fighter jets? Why do we walk away from that? And but then we're perfectly willing to take on Russia over Ukraine. It's very odd. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I don't know enough to make that judgment. I'm just saying I'm confused by it. And like I said, I have some writers, some people that work for think tanks. It's their job to study Russia, study Putin, study Levinsky in Ukraine, and they just write papers about them. These people just know everything there is to know about them. And so I read all that stuff to try to learn. And they're kind of well, the one guy that I really like a lot, he's convinced, and in fact his work gets turned over to the State Department, right? And he's convinced that this is all part of a lifelong dream fulfillment of Putin, that he wants to reunite the old Soviet Union. That this is like Putin's opus, that this is this is the purpose that he was put on this earth. Well, if that's the case, that's fairly frightening, because that would tell me anything is worth the risk. If he believes that he's ordained, if he believes that he somehow has been chosen by God to reunite the original Soviet Union, then nothing else matters. He won't care if people die. He won't care if he unleashes a nuclear weapon. He won't care if he dies. So it gets pretty, it's weird. It's, I don't want to scare people. That's not, it's just it's the thought about, he's a man. He's just a human being. He's not a god. There's nothing about him that, makes him different than other human beings. And so you have to consider, what's he doing? Why do you completely surround a small country? Why are you willing to risk fighter jets and helicopters and well-trained soldiers? Hell, his damn SEALs, his version of the Russian, like our Navy SEALs, they're in Kiev at like 4:00 this morning, and they've got control of the Kiev airport. So he's not only willing to risk his expensive fighter jets and his tanks, he's willing to risk the best fighters that he has. Why? For Ukraine? What the hell's Ukraine? You're like, oh, well, because of the oil and gas and the pipeline. I know. But there's other ways around all that. That's not enough to drive somebody to what he's doing. What he's doing is far bigger than what anybody thought he was going to do. So, yeah, so it is very close. Well, okay, so technically, when they dropped the bomb on Turkey's warship in the Black Sea, it wasn't a warship. It was like like one of those ships that goes beside the aircraft carriers. What are they called? Anyway, it was a military vessel, not one of the big, one of the nuclear vessel or anything. But they did drop some kind of bomb. It looked like to me, the pictures, it looks like to me they shot across the bow. That's what it looks like. They didn't look like to me that it actually hit the ship, but it certainly burned the top of the deck, right? And then it busted out the windows, and whatnot. When they did that, because Turkey is a nation state, right? It is part of the United Nations. So when they did that, it was a Russian jet. And when they did that, they technically, if the United Nations is feeling, hawkish, they could say, okay, Article 5's on the table. Here we go. They've already invoked Article 4 for Poland and Lithuania and whatnot. But that shot across the bow, literally, of that Turkish ship was enough that they could have if they had wanted to. But it's easy to say, no, it must have been a mistake. The pilot accidentally released it. Maybe the weapon accident, something went wrong, right? It's easy to explain it away. And you certainly don't want to risk World War III by an accidental discharge. I'm with you on that. But Putin's forces got within 50 miles of the Polish border. There were air sirens going off in Poland. I got news for you guys. If they drop a bomb on Polish soil, guess what? It will be World War III. Period. No way around it. So it's just, it's a weird thing he's doing. I don't, for the record, let me say this. I don't think he will do that. And if you look at the distribution on the live map, they're pretty well staying away from that Polish border now during the day, right? So I don't think he's going to risk that. He's got Belarus, it's got Crimea. They definitely went after Chernobyl. They definitely targeted Chernobyl. No question about it. No question. He wanted the Chernobyl power plant. No doubt. So, let's see. Russian ship ran into a Royal Army a while back. Oh, I did not know that, Cinnamon. Yeah, I didn't remember that. Ukraine is a criminal hub of the New World Order, which he is absolutely against, and he is freeing the people from corruption, and we'll have the evidence. Well, he talked a little bit about that. He calls the New World Order, he calls them Nazis. And so if you go back and you listen to any of his old speeches or people writing papers about him, when he's quoting Nazis, that's what he's referring to. He's referring to the globalists, the World Economic Forum, that group of people. So I don't know. But I do think it's very funny that they're now trying to normalize this and say, oh no, nobody's surprised by what he's done. They are surprised. My proof is, look at the newscast that they had yesterday when their talking heads were saying, they're experts, right? They're military people. They were saying, well, he could come in here, and then he could cut the Ukraine in half. Not a single one of their military talking heads, not one, laid out a scenario where he would completely surround the Ukraine and conduct an all-out invasion into Kiev. People, he had control of the Kiev airport this morning at 4 a.m. U.S. time. Maybe 8 hours after the invasion started? No, he's going in and he's staying in, but we don't know why. That's what's confusing. All right. A show of power to cower other countries from going against him. Power play like U.S. parking our warships in certain waterways. Yeah, no, I could agree with that, Sketty. He's been facing a lot of pressure, financial, economically. He's been facing a lot of pressure from the EU with the help of the Biden administration. And there are some of the think tanks that believe that he felt like he didn't have any other choice, that if he continued to be complacent and try to live within the rules they were setting, then it would choke off Russia economically, and that he made a choice between the costs of inaction as opposed to the cost of aggression. And he decided to gamble on the cost of aggression in an effort to get control of the economic punishment that the EU has been waging against him. Rabbit dog. He's announced that any response will be met with immediate retaliation. Yeah, immediate retaliation, the likes of which the world has never seen, right? And of course, everybody immediately goes to the idea of, a nuclear weapon. It's a mess. It's a mess. But here's one thing I do think for people. I do think that you probably, groceries are going to be getting, I mean, they're already astronomically high here in the United States. They're going to be getting much worse. Your gasoline, you're already going to be looking at probably, let's see, the February, March, April, May. Probably by June, we're going to be looking at gasoline in the United States at $5, $6 a gallon. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Any dry goods that you can buy now, buy them, put them on the shelf, save some money. Sugar is going to become astronomical. It's going to go out the roof. Coffee is going to do the same thing. It's just the economics of moving it around and the fact that what they're doing is going to create an enormous disruption in the movement and use of, fossil fuels, oil and gas. Unless if the Biden administration would open up the U.S. drilling, open up the pipelines again, then Europe will have access to lots of oil and gas. They'll just be buying it from the U.S. instead of buying it from Putin or from his friends in the Middle East. So there is an answer to that. Don't let him come out and say, oh, no, we don't have any choice, wring in his hands. No, there's a choice. It won't take 45 days for the drilling companies to get up and running with the rigs up, and it'll take even less than that to open up the pipelines. So there's choices. The people in Europe don't have to freeze to death. We don't have to be, eating oatmeal every night. No, there are choices, but will our government make those choices? That's the question. He wants to restore the old Soviet Union. Yeah, that's what the think tank people say. The people that study him and his life, they say this is all about him, his vision that he's the chosen one, and it's going to be his role to put the Soviet Union in all of its glory back in state. It's a weird situation. It's a strange global setup. It's really hard to know who the bad guy is and who the good guy is. It's very odd. It's very odd. For example, I listened to Biden talk one day, and he was talking something about that the Ukraine was a sovereign nation and that their borders were, what's it called, sacrosanct, meaning you don't, violate the borders, and that they're entitled to keep their borders protected. And I'm in Texas, and I'm looking south, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so we can protect our borders, because right now we are being invaded and no one else in the United States seems to even notice. But we here in Texas, trust me, unless you get up north to Tyler, Texas, you really don't know what country you're in. It's just so many. It's a weird thing that's happening. Nobody cares. We have so many kids in our foster care system. They will never find a home for them. Never. And these are kids that were found in the desert alone. Because once they get over the border, then they just abandon the kids. The kids keep them safe if they're ever caught. But once they're here, they just walk away and leave them. It's terrible. So I don't know why. I can't figure out why Ukraine should be allowed to protect their borders, but why aren't we protecting ours? Why is it that we've got doctors and nurses that are losing their jobs because they refuse to take a vaccination that they already have antibodies for? But people are coming over the border in the tens of thousands, and they're all 90% of them are infected with COVID. Why is that? I don't know what's right or wrong. I'm asking the questions. I'm waiting for somebody to explain it to me. Note to the weak, wet liberal leaders out there, this is what you get: potential disaster. Europe is looking at a real problem. I agree with Rabid. Europe is that's scary what's happening. Oh yeah, China and North Korea, they're licking their lips. They're thinking they might want to get in on all this action and be a part of the 5 o'clock news. I definitely think so, especially the little fella in North Korea. Anyway, I just, because I did a live earlier where I talked about the fighting that was going on around the Chernobyl power plant. And then I saw where, Ukraine said they had lost control of the power plant and that is currently in the hands or that it's under Russian control. I said, well, I guess I better go ahead and follow up. So it is under Russian control. And nobody seems to know what he wants with the Chernobyl. It just, Chernobyl is a bigger problem than anything. So why did they focus so hard on Chernobyl? They intentionally went for Chernobyl. It's very strange. All right. Got to go. Y'all have a great afternoon. I'll probably be back later on today. Okay. Bye.